guys? This is Phoenix and welcome back to Rise Again Vintage. On this episode, I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I took a poll out on Instagram, Twitter, all of that, and I just asked if you guys had any questions for me. I wanted to do a Q&A video. I've been wanting to do one for a long time. So you guys definitely killed it, asked me a bunch of really great questions. Definitely some about vintage, but some just about my personal life and things like that as well. So I'm really excited about this one. So let's get into it. Alright guys, so starting with the first question, this comes from the homegirl Jenny, Instagram JXO13, and she asked, when did your interest in vintage things start? It's kind of, funny. Throughout kind of life, my mother and I would always go thrifting. We'd go to different places, of course your Goodwills, your Salvations, some mom and pop places, things like that. And when we were growing up, we would go there for just a bunch of different things. My mom loved the thrift. She would go out of kind of necessity. We'd get a lot of home items, things like that. When I was younger, I would of course go for toys, but when I started to get older, I would try to look for clothes. And back then you could find honestly a lot of great things. You would find things that everyone's looking for now, like the Nike Gray Tag windbreakers. I remember this one that pops in my head. It was this Nike windbreaker. It was a white tag, if I remember, and it was basically like a split back. It was navy blue and white, and it was a big swoosh on the back. Like it was crazy. It was one of my favorite pieces, and I found that in the thrift, and that kind of jump started my thing. My love for vintage. Definitely was going with my mom to anything from like I said, thrift stores, garage sales, everything like that. That kind of jump started everything, and then getting into kind of recently when I started my business in 2017. Before that, I was always I started wearing vintage more. I was wearing t-shirts. I was buying t-shirts. I was really big into sneakers back then too, so I'd have sneakers, but I didn't want to wear like your Supreme or things like that. So I wanted to pair a vintage t-shirt with my sneakers that I was wearing at the time, and that kind of helped get me back into I should say, because there was a couple years where I wasn't rocking vintage that much. I was thrifting, and I was wearing like just the simple things, but I would say definitely started my business into vintage. Again, just something I've had a passion for a long time. Really got me just big jump back started into it. But originally what started it was just me and my mom going thrifting, going to garage sales, all of that. All right guys, next question comes from the homie Austin at Neil Clothing. Definitely check him out. He's got a bunch of different clothing. He makes his own clothes. He's an artist. Did a podcast episode with him a long time ago. Definitely a good guy. He asked, what do you look for when finding a quality vintage piece? It kind of just depends, man. When I'm out thrifting and I'm looking for things, it's kind of whatever catches the eye. Of course, a lot of people look for like the single stitch or things like that. But there's definitely some really great double stitch t-shirts, so I don't just look for single stitch. For me, I'm a big t-shirt guy, so if I look for anything with a really dope or crazy graphic, anything that I remember, kind of nostalgic piece, and then brands too. Of course, it's not as much selling anymore, but like the Tommy or Guess pieces, things like that. That's when I started really getting into the business side of it. That's what I was looking for a lot. But yeah, for me, especially just being the t-shirt guy, I always look for dope graphic, great color, things like that. Beautiful fades. I'm a big fan of fades, distressing, everything like that. So those are the things I look for the most when it comes to finding that quality piece in the thrifts. All right guys, next up, the homie at the_vintage_returns ask, what's your number one grail shirt that you don't have? If money was no object or anything, what would it be? Funny enough, with everything that's going on in the world right now, you got to try to find things to do. Of course, I record videos, recording still podcast episodes, everything like that. But as of recent, I started making a list of my kind of vintage t-shirt grails, and a couple come to mind, and it's probably ones I'm still looking for. I'm hopefully hoping to get this summer. But number one would probably be the Stone Cold Steve Austin Celebrity Deathmatch t-shirt. Reason being is, I grew up a big wrestling fan, but I also remember watching Celebrity Deathmatch. I couldn't watch it at home. I would always watch it at my friend's house and stuff, but Celebrity Deathmatch was just a crazy show, from just the animation itself, the claymation, but also just the funny people he had on there and everything. I remember getting a video game too, I think from, one of my friends. So we did a trade for it. I traded him something and got it. And it just was such a fun game. But I think the combination that always, came to me was the Stone Cold Steve Austin, me being a big wrestling fan, and then Celebrity Deathmatch just together on a t-shirt is so cool. And then probably the second one would be the NWO Rodzilla t-shirt. I'm not sure if you guys know. I'll put what the t-shirts look like when I'm talking about this. But the Rodzilla t-shirt is just so sick. Like if you look at it, just the big face of Dennis Rodman. I'm a big Dennis Rodman fan. I'm a big Bulls fan. So definitely, love everything about Dennis Rodman. He's just wild, man. I think he's probably one of the best pop culture figures from the '90s. But on top of that, just probably in history, you just look at everything he did and push forward. A lot of his stuff of dressing differently, everything wasn't the biggest thing back then. So to see him do it and see it be so accepted now is just really cool. And I actually just recently watched his show Rodman World Tour, thrifted the VHS, and I started watching it, and it's just wild. But yeah, when he was in WCW, watching some of that footage, just such a cool t-shirt. There's the other one too, where it's the Hogan, was it Hogan and Rodman versus, I can't remember, I think it's DDP and Malone, I want to say. Correct me if I'm wrong, but probably those would be my top three. Of course, mostly wrestling tees. That's what I look for the most. But yeah, if I had no money, I mean, of course, rap tees, but I've never been like a huge rap tee guy. There's a couple I'd want, like Wu-Tang, Fuji's, a Nas one, things like that. But if I had to like choose, I mean, and they don't even go for that much. The hardest part of finding those t-shirts is, for me, the size, because I'm like on like a bigger XL or like a double X, and so a lot of times those Stone Cold Celebrity Death Matches are on TJ's tags, and when you start to know, like I've mentioned before in previous videos, when you start to know a lot of those t-shirt tags, and TJ's is just never good on an XL for me, at least. I always feel like it runs a little bit small, like a large, and so I haven't found a good Stone Cold Celebrity Deathmatch t-shirt. And then the Rodzilla, I just haven't found, out in the wild or just in general on eBay. Like, it's really hard to find. So if you guys have that, definitely hit me up. I'm definitely looking for it, looking to cop this summer. Trying to grab more grails this summer, so definitely stay tuned. And yeah, those would be my kind of grails I'm looking for. All right, guys, next up comes from my homie RLP_vintage. He says, vintage you're into at the moment. And that's such a good question, because of course I've been into wrestling tees, promo tees, things like that, and those are things I collect. But t-shirts I'm really into at the moment, one major one would be probably, I would have to say, like the rap kind of promo style t-shirts. I got one recently that was from the homie Vintage Drips, or Ryan, which was that Nas promo t-shirt, and it was from like I think it was like a college performance at Cornell University. I don't know why. I've started trying to research those, seeing if I could find those. I found one on Instagram for Outkast that like performing at a college. I don't know why the rap kind of college performance t-shirts, that's something I've been really into, trying to find a lot. Another thing was the kind of the Marvel t-shirts. I think those are really cool, the design and the artwork on a lot of those t-shirts. The prices are going crazy though. I remember when they were not this much. Now I've seen like some sell for like 200, 300, depending on the person and the art, everything like that. It's really crazy to see. I started drifting a little bit away from the promo t-shirts, but a lot of those TV promo t-shirts, I'm trying to find a Friends t-shirt, some more Seinfeld tees, things like that. That's what I'm really looking for. And then of course the wrestling t-shirts, but not just like your regular Stone Cold or The Rock. I want to find the pay-per-view event t-shirts, like for instance WrestleMania 14 or 15. I've been looking for that one for a while. And on top of that, the wrestlers you don't see too often, There's like, like a Lita t-shirt, or, a Val Venus. I've been looking for Val Venus for a while. Just t-shirts like that are just something I've been looking for a while. But yeah, definitely those things are just what I'm into at the moment. And that definitely does change. Of course, I'm always going to be into wrestling t-shirts, but besides that, a lot of things do change into my taste for vintage. But yeah, that's going to be kind of what I'm into at the moment. All right, guys, coming with the next question here, and it comes from the homie Combs. He asked, how did you link up with VXH? From my non-local homies out there, the homie Bowie, he runs Vintage X Hype. He is also the co-owner of the archive with me. And how we linked up, it kind of goes all the way back to, I would say, 2017, I want to say. I used to try to flip vintage when I first started out on like Facebook groups, things like that. And he hit me up because he was originally inside DMI Vape, which is now, they have Ills Around, which is Alan and Justin's shop and everything, and where we're inside of for the archive. And he hit me up. He's like, yo, I have a rack at DMI Vape and Kicks. If you want to come check it out, I know you're into vintage. And then we just started talking from there. We were talking about kind of the culture, vintage. And back then, it was just cool to find someone that was also into vintage because, of course, if my local homies can, attest to this, is now it's such a big crowd where we were able to throw some of these flea markets last year and things like that. But back then, it was about 3 or 4 people that I knew of that were into vintage. So, we started talking, and then I want to say we first met up at the Iowa Soul 3, which is my homie Richard Randall's his past event that he used to throw for sneakers in Iowa. Is one of the main sneaker things, or if only the sneaker events in Iowa that we had. So we met up, we linked up, I bought something from him, and at this time I was getting ready to sell all of my sneakers. I was dabbling into selling vintage and starting my business, but I was still like selling sneakers and buying sneakers, everything. Sold all my sneakers, and I remember I bought my first item from him, which was a Yankees jersey that you guys probably see me wear a lot. It has the 98 World Series patch on there and everything. But we started linking up from then. Then, fast forward a little bit, we were talking about, throwing a pop-up because it's never been done. We'd never done, a vintage pop-up before, things like that. So I linked up with my homie Miller, or Human Clothing. Definitely look him up. He's, now he's out in LA doing big things, but we all link up. We start talking about, what can we do? So then Bowie, had the inside scoop at DMI. And so we go hit them up, and they're like, you know what? We're actually about to open Illis Around at Merle Hay Mall. Why don't we wait and do the pop-up then? And that's what kind of started the relationship between Bowie and I. We did the pop-up, and he was already there. We linked up, talked more. That day was awesome. And then fast forward a little bit more to around February, I want to say. We decided, it was myself, Bowie, and 515 Vintage, or Austin. If you guys see, obviously his collection video, we all linked up and decided to run a pop-up, and that turned into a month-long pop-up in downtown Des Moines. And then from there, we just started linking up more, talking more. And now, fast forward to now, we are co-owners of a vintage business. We own the archive. He's just a really great friend, man. He's just such a cool guy. And that's kind of how we started to link up and, go all the way to now. It's just crazy how connections and business and, turns into friendships and just everything, man. So shout out to Bowie, and thanks for the question, Combs. All right, next up, we got a question from the homie Wick Vintage on Instagram. He asks, what's the best and worst trade you were ever involved in? That's actually a really good question. I do trade from time to time, but I don't think I've really had like a horrible trade experience before. Usually who I trade with a lot is like the homies and things, so we're usually pretty, good with, doing trades and showing love on the trades and all of that. But I do remember one that actually was just recently that I was really excited about, was with the homie Skylar, or Vintage Goods and Garments. As you guys saw in my recent pickups video, I did a trade with him for that Gary Baseman Nike ACG t-shirt. I traded him that t-shirt for a couple, one of our local school, Drake, crew necks. And the reason why we did it, and the cool part is like, you know, we were both happy with the trade, and that's all you want in a trade is you want both sides to be happy. I was happy because I got this personal t-shirt. He was happy because he got some quick flips, because around here it's really hard to find vintage Drake, one, but two, anything kind of local school related can be pretty easy flips if you know the right clientele and everything. So, you know, I got the t-shirt, and for him that's an easy 30 to 40 bucks per crew neck. So, and I think he already sold them because I haven't seen him post them for a while. So that's probably one of the best trades I was involved with. And you know, prior to trades, I do want to mention this is like buyouts. That was another question that somebody had a while back. Is like, you know, what kind of buyouts or what's the best buyout that you've had? One that comes to mind where I was with Bowie actually. It was right before the pop-up when we meet up with this guy. We go out of town, and we thought we were just going to get like maybe 3 to 5 items, and then we end up walking away. I think it was like 30 plus items, and that's what I live for, man. I love doing buyouts. I love seeing, you know, what people have in their closets and going there, checking it out, and, you know, working out a deal. So I don't do trades as much, but we definitely do buyouts a lot more than, you know, trades. And especially, obviously, with the shop too now, we have that storefront. We have the opportunity to do buyouts and trades. If people come through, they're looking to do some buyouts or things like that. We also can offer trade credit. And we've worked out some really great deals where we gave somebody like a guest stripe, but then we were able to get like a bunch of inventory for that one piece. And it's really cool to, you know, make that person happy and then also us happy, where we have the inventory, a bunch of new inventory that we can post on our Instagram and, you know, put up at the shop too. But yeah, I've never really had like a bad trade, just really good trades and really good buyouts. But thanks for the question. All right, next question comes from the homie Pure Tactics on Instagram. This is my guy, man. He hit me up saying he watched the videos a while back, and we've just become, you know, homies after that. And he does ask, he actually lives in Australia, so he asked, do you have any trips to Australia once the virus blows over? If so, where you want to hit? Honestly, man, I've really wanted to go to Australia for a while. I think it's really cool. I've heard really great things. I've seen, obviously, you know, videos, things like that. I never skated, but I always, you know, watched a lot of skate videos and stuff, and it always seemed like there was a really cool culture of skate and, you know, just streetwear and everything in Australia, so I've always been fascinated by that. So I don't have any plans in the near future, but I think it'd be something cool to really do. And, you know, of course you're out there too, so it'd be really cool to, you know, link up and meet with people and that's kind of a really cool thing about this era that we're in of social media, things like that, doing YouTube. Is meeting people that, you know, I would have never met somebody, you know, from Australia if I was just, you know, doing random stuff, you know, in Iowa and everything. But that's the cool part about connecting. So I definitely want to go check, you know, Australia out. But on top of that, I want to go check out Cold Wave Store. That's the homie shop where he's at and everything, and they got a lot of cool stuff. So definitely check them out on Instagram. But yeah, that's probably gonna be my first stop, man. I'd love to check out the beach. Go check out Cold Wave Store, a bunch of other shops. Maybe, I don't know if there's a thrift scene out there. Maybe you can tell me that. But yeah, that'd be an awesome trip. Of course, I'd want to go to Australia. All right, guys, next question comes from the homie Jake or 319 Thrifty. Shout out to you, homie. He asked, favorite Cartoon Network show. That's tough, man. I think, of course, I grew up watching Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon. You guys know my love for Nickelodeon. But Cartoon Network, I think, you know, definitely had some really good shows. A couple that come off, you know, the bat to me, Dexter's Laboratory, that was a great show. Courage the Cowardly Dog, I mean, of course, that's awesome. Ed, Edd and Eddy. There's one, what was it called? Cow and Chicken. I don't know why. That's just a funny show. I still like that show. Obviously, they don't show it anymore, but I remember, you know, them showing Tom and Jerry, you know, previous, you know, episodes on there and everything. But Dexter's Laboratory, I don't know why, I watched that one a lot for sure. If anyone has a Dexter's Laboratory promo t-shirt, for sure hit me up, because I saw one from the homie Heat Broker and I haven't seen one since, so I'm trying to find one. If you guys have one, definitely hit me up. But yeah, I'd probably have to say Dexter's Laboratory. Cartoon Network definitely put on some really good shows. In the later years, you know, Toonami, I mean, they definitely had some really great shows from there. And that anime, you know, at night, Adult Swim, I mean, there's so many great shows that Cartoon Network has provided, not only in the kind of the kids shows, but on top of that, adult shows that they have. So, but for me, it'd definitely be Dexter's Laboratory. All right, guys, next question comes from the homie Azizus on Instagram. Shout out to him. He's big into wrestling, and here's the question that, of course, has to do with wrestling. He asked me favorite wrestling match of all time. As you guys know, I'm a big wrestling fan. Been watching wrestling for years. One that comes to mind that, with WrestleMania coming up here soon, big one that comes to mind is Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, WrestleMania 25. Definitely a little bit more recent one, but if you guys are into wrestling, anything from the psychology of the match to the actual work of the match, the story build to the match, it was just a really great match that they had, between the two. And Shawn Michaels and Undertaker are probably two of my favorite wrestlers, so to have them wrestle together was just, in such a big moment, was just amazing. I think it's probably one of the greatest matches of all time. Another one, just for a personal favorite, it was the triple threat TLC match. You had the Dudley Boys, Edge and Christian, and the Hardy Boys. I just remember that's one of my favorite memories of wrestling growing up. Seeing Edge spear Jeff Hardy off the ladder, I will never forget that. It was so amazing. And another one that probably people don't know about is the Iron Man match between Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle on SmackDown in about, I want to say 2002 or 2003. That just shows, just wrestling skill. And of course, I don't want to talk too much about wrestling, but I'm a big wrestling fan, man. I've been watching for, like I said, a lot of years, and those three are probably my top favorite matches. It just, from the ring, the work standpoint of the Shawn versus Taker to the memories and nostalgic and the crazy holy shitness of the TLC match with the Dudleys and the Hardys and Edge and Christian. And then the Iron Man match with Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar was just, technically amazing. I mean, it was just really great. But yeah, thanks for the question, man. I don't get a lot of wrestling questions, so shout out to you, man. All right, guys, a couple of last questions here. First one coming from the homie Born Again Christian Bale on Instagram. And he asked actually a really good question, that has to do with the times going on right now. He asked, how has quarantine affected you business-wise and in general? First of all, thanks for the question, man. Definitely appreciate it. As you guys know, it's affected all of us, from the kind of impact, the financial impact, everything like that. Me personally, business-wise, we had to close the shop, with Illest Around in the archive. We had to do that for, as of now in Iowa, we're closed until April 7th, but, who knows how long this is going to last and how long it's going to push forward. And that kind of sucked, having to close the storefront, but that doesn't stop the work. So what we did was take everything, a lot of pieces from the store, put it online. As you guys saw in the previous video, put it on Depop, and try to move on there. So that's kind of the next, how I transitioned for this time being, is just selling online. And people are buying, just not as much. Obviously, we don't have as much expendable income. So people are still buying, but just not as much as they used to. So I'd say business-wise, that's kind of how it affected me, unfortunately. But I'm still looking at the positive light, as I'm still having money come through, through Depop sales, online sales, things like that. And it kind of gives a look into how kind of grateful and appreciate, I appreciate just everything in this short amount of time I've done with the business. And I know Bowie does too, and all the guys at the shop. And we're just thankful for, the support, and I just can't wait to get back out there. We were talking about, throwing more events, flea markets and things like that. 2 days before we had announced that we were closing, us as the archive threw, a really great event, which was a fill-a-bag sale. We had close to 30 people, I want to say, line up, and we did $20 fill-a-bags. It was a big event, and then 2 days later we had to close because of this, unfortunately. So it's just staying optimistic, man, and just staying positive. That's all you can do. And for me personally, what I'm doing and how it's kind of affected, but in a good and bad way, is I'm always on the go. I'm always doing things. I'm always, either out thrifting or trying to create content, or this, that. I'm always on the go. So it kind of puts you to a halt where you got to kind of stop. I still obviously have a day job right now, thankfully. But that's even short amount of hours right now, so I'm I'm pretty much home, a bunch of times throughout the week. So I'm using that to create more content for you guys, try, different methods for podcasting, and just take some time for myself too, and spend time with family and kind of do all that, and just stay home as much as possible, because that's the goal, and that's how we're going to beat this, is just, social distancing, staying home, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, definitely thanks again for the question, man. All right, guys, so final question here. I kind of want to end it on a non-vintage note. So the homie Austin Neal, or Neal Clothing on Instagram, again, shout out to him. This is the second question that he asked me. He said, what makes you happy, or, where do you find happiness? And kind of a small kind of thing, attacking that question is, I find happiness in the small things, man. I'm just grateful for the opportunity of what I have and been able to do, from doing YouTube to podcasts to my business to just life, family, just everything, man. I'm just thankful for the life I have right now and the future that it brings, because I didn't think a couple of years ago that this would be possible. Anything from the business to starting YouTube. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, so I'm just thankful, and that's honestly what makes me happy, is just the small things, whether it's not even the material things, just being happy of what I'm doing. Because as you guys know, maybe some of you know my story, I might have to do a video on that, but I used to work like the corporate jobs and things like that. So when I left that and I made that decision to start my business and kind of take that first step, it was from there on out, it just made me happy. And ever since then, I've just been really happy of what I'm doing, and I definitely see the future, and it's bright, man. So I can't wait to put more things out for you guys, and just kind of continue my legacy and my success, because that's what I look for and strive for. It's the money will come for sure, and of course we're a business, we obviously want to make money and everything, but I'm big on legacy and success. That's been my major two things I've always been striving for. I want to leave a legacy behind. So that's what makes me happy, is just the small things, man, and just everything I'm doing. And I'm really excited for the future. And yeah, so that's going to do it for this Q&A video. I do want to thank you guys for watching. Definitely appreciate it. Definitely appreciate all the questions. Might have to do some more of these in the future. You guys can follow me on Instagram at Rise Again Vintage. You can follow anything Rise Again Media related at Rise Again Create. That's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that. Check out more videos on the YouTube. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Just a little quick plug also, I also do a podcast called Rise Again Podcast. Check it out. It's available on the Anchor and Spotify app currently. Again, I do want to thank you guys for watching, and yeah, that's going to do it. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.